I am Angelo Ponzi, your host here at the Business Growth Cafe, and thank you for joining me again here at the 5-minute break. Hopefully, you've been enjoying these shows. They've been playing in the morning. They could be playing in the afternoon. It doesn't really matter. I think I'm recording this one at night. I'll probably need to play in the morning. So I won't be drinking any whiskey because that'll give the bad impression if you see me drinking that early in the morning. Today, I want to talk about tips for a customer first strategy. Now, I think this is really important because so many times when I deal with organizations, they tend to think about themselves, right? It's a company centric approach, if you will, as opposed to a customer centric approach. And so I really want you to kind of flip that script and think about your customers as you go along today. So I've got these 4 tips, I believe it is. And so the first one is identifying your target persona. Now, you've heard me talk about this if you've listened to the show over the last several years. These are really important. And it's important to make sure that you're developing these personas. Yes, they're fictitious. I get it. But they're based on some elements of fact that you're pulling in from your customers, from your salespeople, from your marketing team, whatever it happens to be. And so these become very important to help try to define what that customer might look like, how they might react, especially if you're dealing in a hierarchy, if you will, with multiple people within an organization making decisions. So it's really important that you lay out these personas. They can also help in your media buying and setting those tone until you actually get some kind of facts. So the first part and the first tip is take the time and identify the target personas for every customer in a hierarchy that you deal with. It's really important that you do that. The second one is you've got to get beyond just generalizations. You just can't assume it's a one-size-fits-all strategy because it really isn't. We might find that how a marketing director or a head of purchasing might react in one company could be very different from another company. So not only are you developing these personas for individuals, but they have to be tailored to the individual market segments that you're targeting. You don't want to just assume it's a one-size-fits-all. And so you really need to dig into that data, look at the metrics, get to know your customers, not only from a data-driven standpoint, but also on a human level too, to try to understand, I call it laddering. How do you go from that functional benefit to ladder up to an emotional connection with your customers becomes very important. And you need to engage with them, right? You can't develop marketing strategies just based on these strategies that you pull out of the air. You really need to understand how they consume information, for example. If you're dealing with a younger generation who likes videos and all you're producing is white papers, then you're going to have a disconnect in the type of relationship you have with your customers. So you've got to get out into the market. You've got to do some research. If you've been listening to the 5-minute breaks, we've talked about research just recently. You've got to get out, talk to your customers, get out of the boardroom, quit talking to yourself, get out and have a conversation with them. Doesn't mean research is not necessarily expensive. You just have to make the investment in time and energy to get out and have these conversations in an organized manner, if you will. There's a process to it. You just can't go crazy and just start asking a lot of questions. At the end of the day, you just have a lot of junk that you need to kind of piece together. So sit down, do a formal roadmap on how you want to connect with your customers and gather that information. Happy to have a conversation with you. If you'd like some guidance, happy to do that. And the next is it has to be driven from the top, right? If you're down at the bottom level and you're a marketing director, for example, not to mean you're at the bottom level, sorry about that, but if you're down in the trenches, you can't necessarily drive a customer first strategy. It needs to come from the top. It has to be driven from the top down by the leadership to really push that through the entire organizations to change how people think about your customers and how to approach them, how to communicate with them, and to take that and roll it out into the entire organization becomes extremely important when you're doing this. So I encourage you to look at these 5 tips or these 4 tips, implement them in your organization. Happy to have a more detailed conversation with you about those as well. Join me here again for your next 5-minute break.